Hey there guys! So I did it. I got on the John Green train. Woo woo! That was really weird. Okay, so I have read this book right here. It is Looking for Alaska and it's by John Green, and this is the first book ever that I've ever read from him. And it's also his first book, which is, you know, makes sense, doesn't it? So a lot of you guys love this book. A lot of people have read this book. And so I finally read this book. This came out ages ago, and I feel like everyone has read this book. And yes, so basically because so many people have read this book already, I'm going to do a really quick review at the start of this video, and then I'm going to do a discussion at the end of it. And so in the box that you're in right now, or that I'm in, there'll be like a button that will say review part, so that you can watch the review, which is what I'm doing now. And then there'll be another button that will say discussion, so that if you read this book already and you don't want me to talk about it and tell you what it's about because you know already, then you can just click that button and you'll be like moved ahead to that part of the video. So yes, that's basically what I'm going to do, and let's get into it because you know how I just talk and talk and talk. So yeah, let's talk about this book. This book is narrated, and the main character is Miles Halter, whose nickname is Pudge. He's a 16-year-old boy, and he's living with his parents, and obviously, and you know, his life is kind of boring and his social life is non-existent, and he's looking for adventure and for just excitement and for something big to happen to him. And he wants, as it says in the book, he wants a great perhaps. He wants this big adventure to happen. And so he goes and he, you know, looks for that, and he does that by going to boarding school. He decides to go to Culver Creek boarding school, which is where his father went. And he goes there and he meets all these interesting people, and one of the people that he meets is Alaska Young, which is the last name. And he kind of gets drawn into their world, and you know, he experiences things, and he's just consumed with Culver Creek and Alaska and his roommate Chip, who's also called Colonel. And you know, he's just put into their world, and he has his great adventure, because if he didn't, then this book would really be boring. But it's not. So the setting is really, really good. I really liked Culver Creek. It's really interesting, and you know, it's a really cool place. There are crazy, scary swans who terrorize people because they're scary, and there's really interesting characters. I really liked his roommate Chip, whose nickname is Colonel, as I said. He was really interesting. He's like this short, muscular character who's really smart. And Alaska was really interesting as well. She's this exciting, wild, crazy kind of person who's really beautiful and really smart as well. And you know, Miles kind of immediately likes her, and you know, everything just develops from there. So that is a little bit about the book. Now I'm going to tell you what I like and don't like about this book. The first thing that I like about this book is the character development. I didn't say this yet, but like the first half of the book it kind of leads up to this event. It does lead up to this event. It says, like, over each section of the book, like, kind of like, it's not divided into chapters, it's kind of divided into days. So like, it's counting down the days to something that's going to happen in the middle of the book, and then the second half of the book is talking about what happens afterwards. It's like the aftershock of this big thing that happens in the middle of the book. And especially afterwards, in like the after period, Miles and all the rest of the characters, they really develop and they really change, and I really like the character development. That was really good in this book. The next thing that I really like is the characters were really realistic and really interesting. Miles, as a male narrator, was really good, and you know, he was a real boy. He wasn't Pinocchio. Second Pinocchio reference in my videos, by the way. He was really, you know, he was a real boy, and he was interesting, and he talked and thought in a real and realistic kind of way. The characters were also really interesting. They were really smart, and they all had these little things, these little talents that they had. Like, Alaska was really good at pranking people, and there's a lot of pranks in this book, and the pranks are awesome, by the way. You know, she's really good at reading. She really loves to read, and that was really good. Miles is he knows all these people's last words, all these famous people's last words, which is really interesting, because I found it really interesting to like see how people's last words kind of reflect the rest of their lives, or not the rest of their lives, the previous life that they've had. And Chip, who's called the Colonel, he has memorized all these capitals of different countries, which he's really, really smart. Like, did I say that already? He is really smart. Yes, so I really liked the characters, they were really interesting. The other thing that I really liked is the ideas and the kind of themes that were in this book. I've heard a lot before that John Green makes you think about his writing, and he really did with this book. There's a labyrinth kind of idea that's addressed in this book. Someone's last words are, how do I get out of this labyrinth? I think that's what it is. And, you know, like just the way that the characters think about it, and the way that the idea is kind of malleable, and it can mean different things for different people. So you get to kind of like think about it. And after reading this book, I thought about the idea and thought about the different meanings and what it meant for me, and it was really good. I really like when books make me think about things. Gosh, I'm like going a little bit crazy today. Yeah, I really liked, you know, that it made me think about things. So I really like that about the book. The things that I didn't like about this book. Okay, so you guys, I was a tiny bit, a smidgen disappointed with this book. A lot of people really like John Green, and I had really high expectations of this book, which is kind of, I mean, it's kind of bad because, I don't know, maybe my expectations were too high, but I was just a little bit disappointed. And so, the things I didn't like, the middle event that happens, this big thing that happened, it was kind of anticlimactic for me. Like, you know, there's this huge build-up, like the whole front half of the book is building up to this big event, and then it happens, and it was kind of like, oh, and then I kept on reading. Do you know, like, I felt I was supposed to be shocked and like, oh my goodness me, and like, you know, I felt like I would have not been able to read on or something like that, but I was kind of just like, oh, okay, and then I just moved on. It wasn't like, you know, as big as I expected it to be, and I don't know if that was on purpose, but I didn't think that it was just going to be that, like that, because I kind of almost expected it because there was lots of foreshadowing for this thing, and then it happened, and nothing else happened, and I was like, okay, and then I moved on. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, that I didn't like about this book, is I kind of, at times, didn't like Miles and Alaska, and I mean, they're very likable characters, and it's really hard for me to like a character completely, but there were lots of times that I was really annoyed at Alaska, and there was lots of times that I was just tired of Miles. You know, I was just like, oh gosh, just stop it, just, ugh. I don't know, I didn't like them as much as I thought I should have, and so yes, those were the things that I didn't like about this book. I kept on thinking the whole way through reading this that I would have loved this book in high school, when I was like actually this age, like when I was 16 and, you know, Miles and all the rest of the characters are like 16 and they're in high school. When I was in high school, I would have loved this book. I was looking for my great adventure. I mean, my life wasn't like really boring and non-eventful, but I wanted like this big event and big adventure. I wanted like my life to have a soundtrack, and, you know, I feel like lots of teenagers want that. And so if you're a teenager, I would definitely recommend this book to you. If you're older than that though, it's still a really good book. I still really enjoyed it, but I feel like you'll read it and you'll be like, I would have loved this book in high school, and yes. So, yeah, that was my review for this book. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. And yeah, so that's basically my entire review. Hey there guys, so this part of the video is my discussion part, where I talk about this book right here, and if you have not read this book, then you shouldn't watch this part of the video because I'm going to be talking about this book and there'll be lots of spoilers. So if you have read this book, then watch on. So, in my review I talked about some of the things that I didn't like about this book, and I know a lot of people will have loved this book, and they'll be like, you know, how did you not love it completely? And I just want to like talk more about the things that I said. So, this is something that I did like about this book. The characters for me were really good and really interesting, and I really liked them. However, at some points in the book, I felt almost like there was like a checklist, like smart, witty, sarcastic, special, quirky trait, that's your talent, and, you know, I felt like it was like a checklist, and all the characters had these things, but I felt almost like it was like, just, you know, like there was like ticking of characteristics, but not really like a cohesive kind of molded together character. Like I I felt things weren't cohesive when it came to the characters, and I really couldn't explain this well, but for me, I kind of felt like he just, he had these characters and they had these things, but it didn't flow for me. They didn't feel good. They felt good, but they didn't feel as good as I wanted them to feel. I wanted the characters to be good, and because all those things were there, I really wanted to like them more than I did, and I liked them, but for me, it felt like they weren't put together I feel like I'm contradicting myself. They weren't put together as much as I wanted them to be. So that was something I didn't like. The other thing I didn't like was Alaska and Miles. There was lots of times where I didn't like those characters, and I didn't like Alaska because she was annoying, and part of the reason I didn't like her was when Miles wouldn't like her, I wouldn't like her either, because she was annoying at lots of times, and she was very, there was lots of mystery, and it wasn't like cool, sexy mystery, it was just annoying. I want to know what's happening mystery. And because Miles is sometimes always in the dark, I felt in the dark as well, which isn't really annoying. I hate it when people hide things from me. Stupid. Yeah, and then at the same time, like, when Miles liked Alaska, I wouldn't like him, because I'd be like, you were just saying that she's annoying, and now you're like, all she has to do is smile at you and you like her, and you know what I mean? And I know he was kind of like saying in the book that he shouldn't like her just because she's pretty and smart and everything, but he did anyway, and that kind of annoyed me. And because I didn't like Alaska a lot, or I was annoyed about her at the period when she died, I think that lessened, the moment for me. It wasn't like a, oh my goodness me, Alaska's dead kind of moment. It was a, oh, Alaska's dead. Let's move on. Like, I didn't love her as a character, and I felt like if I did, I would have been more upset about it. If Chip had died, I would have been really, really upset, because I really like Chip. Chip is one of the characters for me who I feel like his character was, together. All those characteristics were just there together. I really liked him. I really liked that he was short, and he was like, this Adonis kind of person, and he was really smart, and I really liked his character. And I also really liked the relationship between Chip and Miles. The whole kind of, like, how they're an old married couple thing, I thought that was hilarious and really funny and really sweet, and I really liked that friendship that was there. I really liked that. It was one of the things that I really, really liked in the book. The other thing I want to talk about is, I said that I would have loved this book in high school, and that's partly because, this is kind of it's for teenagers, and I'm still a teenager, but, not really. I'm like 19, so I'm not in high school. I was in high school like 2 years ago, so I think I would have loved this book when I was in high school and I was looking for my great adventure, but right now I'm kind of past it, and I look back and this book reminds me of myself when I was younger, and it makes me think about all the things that happened in high school, but at the same time there's like this, okay, when you like read a book and you love it so much, and then like a couple years later you read it and you're like, really? Is this the stuff I was reading? Like, you still like it a lot, but you're like, why did I love this book so much? Like, like, you've grown and you've developed and you've read so many more books, and your reading tastes have just, they've gotten better, and you're just a better reader and everything like that. And I'm not saying that this is a bad book, or that it's, a low level kind of writing. It's really well written. Some of the text and the prose was really good, and it flowed really well, but I kind of felt like it was definitely writing to a younger audience than me, and I don't know, I read it and I was like, it felt like that feeling when you've read something that was amazing and you read it later and you're like, oh, it's not as amazing as I thought it was. So I had that kind of feeling. The other thing, Alaska dying, I was really like, I knew that they weren't going to tell me everything that happened. I knew there would be there'd still be some ambiguity about how, not about how she died, but like what she was thinking and everything like that. And they revealed a lot, like they told you, that where she was actually going, and everything was said. but I knew, I could feel it, that they were going to leave stuff out and I wasn't going to understand Alaska as well as I wanted to, and that just really annoyed me. You know, like, I was like, I'm not going to find it out, and I know that, you know, it works. It doesn't need to be a Disney ending, and that's good when it's a real kind of ending, but it still really annoyed me. I like it, but I don't like it. Other thing I like about this book were the pranks. I really like the pranks. Oh my goodness me, if I was in high school right now, I would totally be doing some of these pranks because they were awesome. The whole stripper thing was hilarious and really cool and really awesome, and it was just really cool. I really like the pranks, they were awesome. So the last thing I want to talk about in this book video is about the idea of the labyrinth. It's kind of, you know, it's discussed throughout the book, and the labyrinth idea is from the last words of Simon Bolivar, I think, or Simon Bolivar, and he says, how will I ever get out of this labyrinth? And those are his last words, and then he dies. And, you know, in the book it's kind of thought of as suffering, you know, like, this labyrinth is suffering, and how do you get out of the suffering that you're in right now? You know, like, how do you accept it? Do you fight it? And in the book, you know, there's this idea of going fast and straight and just, you know, moving and going through it, and I really like that idea. I really like the idea of accepting it as well. And then, like, they talk about labyrinth as an idea of life, like this life is a labyrinth, and who knows what the next, you know, what happens when you die. Is that another labyrinth? You know, the book ends with someone else's last words talking about how someone hopes that after they die it's beautiful and wherever they go, and Miles, you know, says that he wants it he hopes it's beautiful as well. So this idea of labyrinth is, you know, it's an idea that's throughout the book, and I really liked it. It was something that I was thinking about while I was reading the book and a little bit afterwards. And I really liked the way that, you know, he didn't really give you an answer, but he gave you lots of answers, the author, John Green. He gave you lots of answers to the question, but they were all kind of vague, and it left a lot open to you actually saying what you wanted to say, like, you know, projecting your own ideas of what you think the labyrinth is onto the story. And so I want to talk about what I thought the labyrinth is. And I'm not actually sure about this. I'm sure if I think about it more than I have, that it will change a little bit. But for me, right now, the labyrinth is kind of just the moment where I am in life. You know, it can mean suffering, and there's always suffering in life. But I feel like it's just the moment that I'm in this life. And I feel like, you know, this labyrinth, it's always going to be difficult, and it's going to get more and more difficult as I get older and older. And I think the way to get out of it is to not want to, and to just accept that you're in it, and to just accept your life, and to enjoy it. You know, you don't have to go to a boarding school and have a great adventure. You can have a great adventure where you are, and sometimes you have to go to a different place. But I think it's just about accepting the life that you have and making it better and living it to the fullest, and, you know, being as excited about life as Alaska was. Maybe not as excited, maybe not driving excited, but be excited about life and enjoy life, and, you know, don't be afraid to be yourself and to be who you want to be in this labyrinth of life. And so because I think that this labyrinth is always changing and it means different things, I think, to different people, I want to know what you think this labyrinth is and what it means to you, and how will you get out of this labyrinth. So in the comment section below, you know, as well as your whatever you want to comment or say about this review and discussion, tell me what you think about this labyrinth. And yeah, tell me what you think about all that stuff and about the ideas in the book, because they were really interesting and they really made you think. So I know this video has been a long video, but it has been kind of 2 videos in one, so it's okay. And I've enjoyed talking about this book, and I really like this book. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really liked it. And there's like a chapter of The Fault in Our Stars at the end of the book, and I really like To Fault in Our Stars, and I'm really excited to read it. I am going to read the rest of John Green's books, I think, because I did enjoy this. And yes, so that was my book review and my book discussion about this book right here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye.